And we are live. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Happy Monday. Do not adjust your view. That is not Carly on the right side of your screen. It's not a problem with your monitor.
It's not.
um, we have a special guest star for this week's episode of Attractions, the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We're just going to wait for a couple people to join the chat. And while we do, we're going to say hi to Blossom and Terry. Thanks for joining us as always.
And John from St. Louis. Hello.
John, STL, is that St. Louis or is that Seattle? I never know.
Oh, true.
I don't know. And our friend Eric saying good morning to everyone. Thank you
Good morning,
guys
Eric.
all for joining us. Strangely, we have more people in the chat than we have in the viewership. I don't know how that works. We'll give it. Oh, and all of a sudden, boom, there everyone is. All right, welcome. We've got over a dozen people here, so we are just going to kick things off in 3, 2, and go.
Please lower your head and watch your step while boarding.
Welcome to the Attractions Podcast. You are all clear for dispatch. Have fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 168 of the Attractions Podcast, sponsored by MEIN Mouse Fan Travel. I am Seth.
And I'm Tharin.
And we are here to talk to you about the latest and greatest in theme park news and more, as well as what's going on in our own lives. And as you may have noticed, my usual co-host Carly is absent this week. She is off on an exciting adventure in Hawaii. But we have contributor to Attractions Magazine, Tharin White, with us. Tharin, how have
Hello.
you been? It's been a little while since you've helped us out on the podcast. What have you been up to recently?
Well, I've actually been on a cruise this week. I went on the Carnival Celebration, and it's only its second week of cruising. They did their transatlantic, their Eastern Caribbean, and then we went on their first Western Caribbean one. And it was really nice. It was a week in the sun, exploring different parts of the Caribbean, and exploring this new ship, having an insane amount of food. I actually brought my scale on the trip, and between the first day and the last day, I gained 6.7 pounds.
Never ever look at your weight during a vacation.
Well, I
It's the
did it for
number one rule.
science.
Number one
Did it
rule.
for science.
So what was a couple of your favorite things on this ship?
The Guy Fieri's burger joint, surprisingly, was one of the best things on the entire ship. They would have a line every single day, but I never waited more than 3, 4 minutes. There was like 5 different burger types you could get. There was seasoned fries, and they were just really, really good. The
Yeah,
best way
I
to say it
tried
is
that
just,
on the Mardi Gras, and I thought that was a pretty tasty burger. Though I'm
yeah.
not the world's biggest Guy Fieri fan.
Yeah, well, they also had a lunch and dinner area outside of the normal, sit down place you could go that was called Chibang, and it was half Mexican food, half Chinese food, and it was spectacular. They served us in a really, really short amount of time, and it was nice because you might have someone that really wants just some Asian style food, and you want Mexican food. And it didn't matter because you could get it all together. So you could
It's like
order a thing of
peanut butter in
queso.
your chocolate.
Exactly. We got a thing of queso, and you could dip anything. You want some spring rolls in queso? There you go. You want some tacos in queso? It doesn't matter.
Rolls and
This is
queso.
why I
Wow.
gained
Okay.
6.7 pounds. Yeah,
Yes,
it was
absolutely.
delicious.
Well, that sounds like a great trip. I myself am going off this week on the Royal Caribbean, the Wonder of the Seas, which
Mm.
was the biggest ship in the world. I think they've now exceeded it with their newest biggest ship. But this is coming out of Orlando, out of Port Canaveral for the first time, and I'm going to be doing a quick little 2-day cruise. It actually looks like I'm going to be on a 2-day cruise, and just as I get off, Carly is going to be coming on the same boat. So we're going to
Alrighty.
pass each other and hopefully compare notes afterwards on next week's podcast. So
A lot of cruising for everybody at
a
attractions.
lot of cruising. I have done more cruising since COVID than I have maybe my whole life before, because it was one way of traveling during the pandemic that we felt safe about. Though I guess Carnival no longer has any sort of restrictions, and I know
No,
most of the
no specific restrictions.
the cruise lines have all dropped their vaccination and testing restrictions at this point. So, well, I think it is time now for us to hop in without any further ado to the news in the queue. All right, for our first couple pieces of news in the queue, we are going to be staying on the high seas with the Disney Cruise Line, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary in 2023 with new entertainment, merchandise, and a new level of their loyalty club.
Yeah, you just got to go on 25 Disney cruises to join
That's
this
all,
club.
just
Just
25.
25. Just looking at
Well,
what, $100,000 in cruises probably, and you too can be part of this exclusive club.
so this is Disney's silver anniversary at sea, and to kick off the celebration, Captain Minnie Mouse and Captain Mickey Mouse are getting brand new costumes with shimmering multi-toned fabric and swirling designs reminiscent of the ocean waves. They're going to be wearing this attire exclusively aboard Silver Anniversary at Sea sailings in 2023, and I'm sure there will be dolls and merchandise and other things to go
Oh yeah.
along with this new look. In addition, they're going to have a new signature song that's going to serve as the soundtrack for the celebration. And I'm sure you're going to hear this in many, many ways. Deck parties, maybe even they'll reprogram the ship's horn. You will definitely hear this song over and over again throughout the 25th.
Oh yeah.
And of course, merchandise, and new food, new new things to spend money on while you've already spent a lot of money on your cruise. And if you are serious about your Disney Cruise Line, you already know about the Castaway Club. Well, if you thought you had earned your way to the top tier of the Castaway Club, nay, nay. Now there is a Pearl status that you have to cruise 25 times to unlock in order to get unspecified new at-home and on-board benefits. Tharin, what do you think an appropriate benefit should be for someone who has spent the money on 25 Disney cruises? I mean, that's only
25.
one cruise a year for 25 years. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
It makes me think that they will be doing the same thing for the 50th anniversary. You better have gone on 50 cruises. You can become the new gold class or whatever it's going to be.
Yes.
I can see certain things like easier access to reservations on certain things, or maybe on the island you can have a guaranteed seating area. If you're in your ship, I'm sure little presents and little surprises. When we were just on the celebration, the Carnival celebration, every single night we'd come back to our room and we just had little desserts waiting for us in our room. And of course, you got like the Tao animals. Well, I think they could take it a step up like that. You know, you go to maybe your first bar and you get your first drink. They might have like a Pearl Class exclusive cocktail that you can have on your open sailing, something like that. If you can have a shimmery cocktail and then something special for the kids to do. And it's free. I mean, you've already spent probably $100,000 on cruises at that point.
Yeah,
You should get a free cocktail and drink.
easily.
Yeah.
Recently I've taken a couple of MSC cruises, and they have a yacht club level where you get a butler who basically walks you around the ship 24/7. They'll walk you to dinner. They'll get towels for you at the pool. They'll do anything you want. And I think that Disney for this Pearl level should have character butlers. Like you just have Chip and Dale 24/7. One of them has to sleep outside your door, and you just 3 a.m. you want something, they've got to go get their
Chip and Dale will bust the door in. And
yeah, exactly. Well,
it's a serious class level. I mean, someone's gonna it's gonna happen. I mean, there's probably people that will instantly, the second that this officially starts, they've already joined it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love one of those people to make friends with me and invite me along. I love the Disney Cruise Line, and when we first started cruising, we did a bunch of them, but the pricing for the Disney Cruise Line just accelerated out of our budget range, and we haven't
Yeah.
done one in a while. Love to again, but when you can compare the cost. The cost of a 2 or 3 day Disney cruise is the same as a 5 or 6 day cruise on its competitors. So
Yeah.
it's tough. But if you've got it in your budget and you want to participate in this silver anniversary at sea, it's occurring across all 5 Disney Cruise Line ships between May and September of 2023. That includes the Magic going out of Miami, the Wonder in Alaska, the Disney Dream doing transatlantic and European voyages, the Fantasy coming out of Port Canaveral, and the newest ship, the Wish, which is also going to be doing sailings out of Port Canaveral. DisneyCruiseLine.com for all that booking information. And while we're on the subject of the Disney Cruise Line, let's talk a little bit about the new Marvel characters coming to Marvel Day at Sea in
Yes.
2023. The lineup keeps expanding. In fact, you've got it seems like an even more expansive roster of heroes on the ships than we see regularly in the theme parks. And of course, it's being led this time by the stars of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler. Okoye, General of the Dora Milaje, will debut exclusively during Marvel Day at Sea sailings.
Which I think is funny how they keep saying exclusive, because have we not seen every character listed up? Aren't those pictures for the promos literally from the Avengers campus?
Yeah. Well, we see some of these characters appear in Avengers Campus, usually tied to the release of a film, and they're often very brief.
Yes.
If it's a Disney Plus thing, you might see the character for the week of one episode, and then they're gone the next week or the week after. Even some characters that they've had big reveals for, like the big Hulk character,
Yeah.
just are very short term at Avengers Campus, and obviously due to rights issues, we're not going to see them at all at Walt Disney World. So if you missed out on those brief opportunities out in Anaheim, book yourself on Disney Day at Sea. In addition to the getting to meet the general, you're also going to get to participate in the Warriors of Wakanda show. Sounds very similar to the show that is done at Avengers Campus in Anaheim, but you're going to be able to do that on the boat. That's going to be a family-friendly recruitment experience. And these are happening during 5-night sailings on the Disney Dream. There's 9 sailings. They're all out of Miami. And they start in January of 2023. Have you gotten a chance to do any of the Marvel Day at Sea or other specialty cruises on the Disney cruise?
I've actually never been on a Disney cruise, so I know.
Well, we got to talk to Matt and rectify that. I think for science.
Yes, we do. For science, yes.
Science.
I would love to see some of these characters out there. It really seems like they were kind of picking probably some of the favorites or ones that they could feasibly do on the ship. Based out of Avengers Campus. I'm kind of wondering too, just from like a Disney Entertainment background, I wonder if it's the exact characters, like the exact performers that they were just like, hey, look, for 3 months, we're going to ship you to Florida. You're going to go on this ship. You're going to get paid a lot of money and you're going to enjoy the island. But for that, you're going to be our little, it might be, if you met him in California, you might have an exact same experience on the ship, and it would make sense because if they love him over there, they've already had the practice. It would be great at sea too.
I think everything you said there is plausible, except that we'll give you a lot of money.
Oh yeah, let me rephrase that. We'll give you
away a modest
more money than other people on the ship. We will give you more than some of the other workers on the. Yes, not a lot of money.
Well, if you are interested in sailing away with the heroes, disneycruise.disney.go.com, and then look for Marvel Day at Sea under the onboard activities. All right. Next up, I'm very excited to finally see
Woo!
this in person. The Magic Happens parade that was almost lost into the void of history due to COVID is finally returning to Disneyland starting February 28th. I'm sorry, February 24th, 2023, which is almost exactly 3 years after it originally debuted and then quickly shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, have you been able to see this one?
I never saw it in person, but I
Yeah.
watched
I
our video
watched the
of it,
videos, yes, exactly.
and it looks so good. I was like, "This is a amazing parade. It looks perfect for Disneyland." And then just boop, there goes COVID, and I was like, "Oh no!" And then when it didn't come back, but the Electric Light Parade did for the 97th time,
Mhm.
when that came back, I was like, "Oh no! Did we lose this parade after like what 3 weeks of it debuting?" But I'm very very happy to see it coming back. I think it'd be another great thing for Disneyland.
Yeah, so this is, Disneyland's daytime parade. It's, Disneyland's had some great daytime parades over the last decade or so. I still really love the Mickey Soundsational, with the
Hmm.
drummers and the step in time.
Yeah.
But this one really looked, great for the very brief time. Mickey Mouse, of course, at the center of it all. But this, first of all, it had a really interesting art style with all this iridescent fabric and paint, and some really colorful new costume concepts for Mickey and Minnie and all the gang. But it was also the first time that they had full-sized floats devoted to Moana and Coco in a
Hmm.
parade. Since then, we've had those characters referenced in like the electrical parade and some other things, but this was the first time. And the Moana float with that big flexible LED screen as the sail on her boat was a really great visual coming down the street.
And for the whole parade, every float just looked so good.
Hmm.
There wasn't a float that you're like, oh, there's the ugly one. Like they
Right.
all just looked fantastic. And that's
Yeah.
what was so great about the show, along with the music. I think that they really nailed it. And I was very afraid for if it was coming back once COVID happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Frozen 2 float, and a
Hmm.
big finale with lots of characters, and like you said, the music, the original song is a big part of the fun. So yeah, I am really looking forward. There's a lot of stuff happening at Disneyland. We've got kind of back to back to back opening Runaway Railway, the return of World of Color, a new version of World of Color, a new nighttime spectacular in Disneyland. We've got this happening, and then in March, all of Toontown is going to reopen. Yet we still do not have a single opening date for anything in 2023 at Disney World. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to. I've already got a couple theme park Magic Key days reserved around these openings at Disneyland. So I gotta book myself some flights and get out there.
That'll be a lot to check out this year.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely.
definitely a lot to catch up on. All right. And at a totally different Disneyland on the other side of the world, Hong Kong Disneyland has commemorated International Day of Persons with Disabilities with an inclusive cavalcade held on
Hmm.
December 3rd, demonstrating the resort's commitment to inclusion with a character cavalcade joined by over 1,000 guests with various disabilities. This is
This, I think,
interesting that I would like to see something like this at a domestic Disney park.
I completely agree because I feel that this may be a bit of a hot take here. I feel like Disney sometimes uses inclusion as an advertisement, and I feel like they do stuff because they can go, look what we did for people.
Hmm.
But then sometimes like this, I feel like they do it really right. This wasn't, hey, everybody, make sure to buy your tickets for the day we're going to do the inclusion parade. It was just,
Hmm.
they did it and they got to let guests join. And I feel like that was something that was really well done. And like you said, I would think this would be something that could do really well at the parks. If they didn't want to go the full ride of the Magic Kingdom, there was the short cavalcade at Hollywood Studios that was not as long. If you needed it to be a shorter, easier parade to do, that would be a great spot to do it, or somewhere. I mean, anywhere. I feel
Hmm.
like it could be really well done.
So this event at Hong Kong Disneyland was organized in coordination with local community organizations, and it involved a ceremony at the Castle of Magical Dreams, and then they had a cavalcade down Main Street, USA. And some of the folks who participated included wheelchair dancers from the Hong Kong Wheelchair Dance Sport Association, and also wheelchair basketball players from the Hong Kong Federation of Handicapped Youth. There are also Disney volunteers and Disneyland performers. There was a group with hearing impairments using theatrical sign language. Um, and this was all to celebrate the 30th anniversary of International Day of Persons with Disabilities. They also have donated over 10,000 park tickets to guests with disabilities through Hong Kong Council of Social Services. Yeah, I would love to see that more programs like that here in the States.
That sounds like, yeah, a complete win. Especially that's one way to really back up that you want to help is giving away 10,000 tickets.
Yeah.
It's not just we did a parade, take your pictures. It's also 10,000 people, please come join us. And I'm sure working with the city and the country, you can find a lot of communities that might need it more than others. So,
yeah. And as part of these efforts, Hong Kong Disneyland has been acknowledged as part of the Hong Kong Council of Social Services list of barrier-free companies for improving accessibility. So good for them. Next up, The Magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom Season 2 is going to be streaming on National Geographic and Disney Plus beginning in January 1st of 2023. And if you are interested in getting a behind-the-scenes look of how the veterinarians who work at Walt Disney World take care of the animals, this is definitely a must-watch.
this is a great thing because you've already been able to go into the parks and be able to see some of this happen. But there's some people that they want to dedicate their day to just learning this stuff. And
Yeah.
if you can't visit the park every other day to go and see this, is a great way to look behind the scenes. And I think even just helps the park to kind of advertise, hey, we really are helping these animals and we really are trying to make a difference. It's not just a facade for the theme parks because Disney and SeaWorld here in Orlando, they both really do have focuses on animals. And they really do try to do rehabilitation and all that stuff. And you don't always get to see it when you're a park guest.
Yeah, the whole Rafiki's Planet Watch area and the Wilderness Express train, it's kind of a hidden gem of Animal
Yeah.
Kingdom. Everyone's rushing to Avatar, Expedition Everest. A lot of people overlook that or think it's just a petting zoo. But they give you access to view a lot of the treatment rooms, even I've watched surgery been done on animals, and it's fascinating. But I understand people are in a theme park, they're there to ride rides, they don't necessarily want to devote a big chunk of their day to that. This is something that you can do at home. The episodes are just about 40 minutes each. It not only takes you behind the scenes at Animal Kingdom, but also takes you all around Disney property, including the Seas at Epcot, the Tri-Circle D Ranch at Fort Wilderness, even the Animal Kingdom Lodge Hotel. The second season is going to be available both on National Geographic and Nat Geo Wild, as well as being streamable. You'll be able to stream the whole season starting on January 4th on Disney Plus. I got to actually watch them film a little bit of the first season. That's how I found out that they were making this show. When before the first season had been announced, I was walking through Animal Kingdom one day and saw a film crew and talked to the production assistant. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're making the Disney Plus series." So,
just totally gave it away.
yeah. Oops. So I'll be excited. I loved it. I love Animal Kingdom. It's kind of the anti-theme park in a lot of ways. If you're looking to check off as many credits as you can, it's not that kind of park.
No.
But for having an experience and just kind of immersing yourself in an environment that we don't get a lot of close contact with in our daily urban lives. It's great. And if you can't make it to the park, then you can make it there virtually through the show. The only thing we don't know for sure is if Josh Gad is going to be back as the narrator. They have not announced a narrator for season 2.
That's the surprise for later.
I love
And
the
if
fact.
anyone is, oh, go ahead.
No, you first.
I was just going to say, if anyone really is interested in this show and they really are interested in the park, I have done the Caring for Giants tour at Animal Kingdom. It's $35, and I think that is worth every penny if you're interested in animals. For $35, you get to see a backstage Disney areas. You get to go and see spots that no one else really gets to see in the park. You get to go and have like a somewhat private, you and just your group drive around to the back of Kilimanjaro Safaris, and you get to learn about the elephants. And it's really cool because you get a view that nobody else gets. And for $35, that's a pretty cheap tour at Disney World. That's cheap for anything at Disney World.
That's an amazing opportunity. The only tour I can think of that's cheaper than that is the behind the scenes at Epcot, which is also a really great.
It's also
experience. I just love the fact that the first episode of the second season is called Giraffic Jam, because if you have if you have ever taken the Kilimanjaro safaris and had a 20-minute safari turn into a 40-minute safari because a giraffe decided he was just going to hang out on the ride path. Been there,
happened to me many times. Yeah.
All right. Well, like we said, these premiere in January. So check with your cable channel for Nat Geo or sign up for Disney Plus. And speaking of Disney news, Bob Iger, the returning CEO, recently held a town hall for cast members. And as our reporter calls it, it was cautiously optimistic. We talked last week about the bombshell that Bob Chapek was out, and Bob Iger, who had retired, is back for 2 years to hopefully put Disney back on track. He had his first semi-public question answer session with employees. It was the kind of thing that was closed to the press, but then immediately got reported pretty much everything that happened in it. He got asked some questions that a lot of people have been asking, and the answers weren't maybe exactly everything that fans want to hear. But there's reason to be, like we said, cautiously optimistic. So we'll go through some of the highlights. The first and most important that everyone's asking about: park reservations. Does this mean park reservations are going away? Iger said he has not personally used the park reservation system, but he knows it's not necessarily popular. And he says he is going to sit down with Josh tomorrow to get a better perspective for making a decision. Now, we know from social media that he did tour Disneyland with Josh tomorrow, I believe just yesterday or over the weekend. I would love to know if he had to log on to My Disney Experience with a magic key and or a single day ticket and had to make a reservation himself without anyone's help in order to get in the park. I would love to hear that.
I would love to watch that, to just see him be like, oh, this is kind of difficult. That random family from Denver might not like this.
Maybe, you think? So hopefully he will get a better perspective, and we will hear more about the reservation system soon. And number 2, the plan to move Imagineering and a lot of the corporate people at Disney from California to Lake Nona in Orlando has been delayed until at least 2026, but it is not yet canceled. He says he is not reversing the decision, but he is looking into the decision. And I would say that my guess is that the final decision on that will happen sometime around the final decision on what happens to the Reedy Creek district. Right now, there's been a lot of buzz in the news that the Republicans in Florida's legislature are going to backtrack on stripping Disney of their quasi-governmental rights in the Orlando area. and basically put everything back to the status quo before they went to war with Governor DeSantis over the quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill. Um, I'd say that maybe the project might move forward in a smaller way. That some Imagineers and that will be allowed to stay in California, and maybe some people will move to Florida. I don't think that the project will ever be as big as it was originally intended to, but I also don't think they'll scrap it entirely. That's my guess.
Yeah, I don't think they would scrap it just because if anyone has seen any photos or videos, they have done a
Oh
serious
yeah,
amount
yeah.
of work so far.
There's a lot.
They
Yes, there's
invested quite a lot of money. They already laid
a
off a
lot of
huge amount
dirt
of
been moved.
Imagineers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's one thing, like you were saying, it could be that Imagineering kind of stays, but they weren't just moving Imagineering, they were moving a
Oh
lot
no,
of districts of the company.
absolutely.
And I think it could be one of those things where it might almost be like the Imagineers gave a lot of kickback, but maybe the merchandise team did it. And they were like, all right, merchandise team, you're going to Florida. Where the Imagineers were fused and they quit and they did all this stuff. And they're like, all right, look, 60% of the company was going to quit. Where only 10% of merchandise was going to quit. Let's move merchandise to Florida. We've got their building. Half Imagineering can go there, but let's kind of keep them in their homeland where they
Yeah,
originally started.
yeah. That makes a whole lot of sense. Next up, the hiring freeze that had been announced by former CEO Bob Chapek is still in place. Iger says that he feels like the hiring freeze was a quote unquote wise thing to do, given the challenges, and does not have any plans to change it right now.
But for people that don't know, the hiring freeze is not company wide because
It
Disney World, if you have ever driven by casting, they
They are
are
hiring every single day.
begging. They
Yeah.
are begging people to come to work for
This
them.
was
So it's
basically a hiring freeze in the corporate
yep,
management level. This is if you still want to sweep the streets or sell popcorn at uh, at Walt Disney World, I'm sure that they've got openings because they have staffing shortages in pretty much every
yes.
department.
They will give
Um,
you a bonus if you get hired, actually. They
yes,
would really like you to join.
yes. As far as Disney buying new companies, listen, they only own Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, 20th Century Fox. That's not much.
Yeah.
So Bob Iger does not sound like he is looking to buy anything else right now. He says there's no sense of urgency or even interest right now in acquiring anything more. And by the same token, he says that the rumors that he wants to sell Disney to Apple uh, is, quote, pure speculation and not rooted in any fact whatsoever. So good to know.
Yeah.
So I guess you know he talked a little bit about his priorities, uh, creativity, profitability, and a bit about the company turning 100 years old in 2023. It is kind of amazing to think about. I think about the only two companies still operating in the United States that are 100 years old are Disney and Coca-Cola, right? Pretty much everything else has
I
been
think, yeah.
sold or changed or rebranded or something at some point. Um, but there's a lot to dig into. I'm sure investors analyzed every word, every syllable that he had to say.
Oh, yeah.
um, I think the attitude from most of the employees that I've talked to is they feel a lot better with Iger in charge than they did under Chapek. Even if nothing actually has changed yet, the mood seems to be improved.
Agreed.
But he's only got so much time where he can surf on mood. He's got to actually pull the trigger on some of these changes that fans and employees have been asking for if he wants to keep the goodwill.
And I think he can. I think just the even quote right here in the article is Bob Iger said, I stand here today with an incredible sense of gratitude and humility and excitement. I know
Mhm.
this has been an incredibly challenging time and an awful lot has been asked of you. Now that I have assumed this role again, I do have a sense of priorities, but I also feel a sense of urgency. There's a lot we have to do and quickly. I
Yeah.
feel like that is the optimistic part right there. It's just even when he was also asked about what he felt about the company, and people have said that he was like, I had to come back and save the soul of Disney. even if, to be honest, if barely anything changes, I feel like people just believe more in Bob Iger than the name that Bob Chapek was given, which was Bob Paycheck. All the time, if people just, I know it was difficult for Bob Chapek to assume control of the company and then immediately a pandemic happened.
Yeah.
But a lot was just, he just was not liked, I think, almost from the beginning. And I
And
don't think a lot of his interviews helped any of that.
in fairness, a lot of that is optics rather than actual facts.
Yeah.
Many of the things that Bob Chapek has been blamed for were conceived when Iger was CEO,
Hmm.
or were kind of like natural consequences of things that he set up. All the decisions that you didn't like, some way he had some sort of
Oh,
fingerprint
yeah.
on them. But he was just a better communicator. He was just he even if he was making the same policies, he was much better about communicating them in a warm way that made you feel better about them. uh
Yeah.
you know um and that's basically what a CEO does. A
Yeah.
CEO doesn't
It's,
really invent anything or create anything or build anything. What they do is communicate a vision to the public and the employees that everyone can get behind.
yeah. And Bob Iger was just a better business politician.
Yeah,
He was just
absolutely.
good at being that politician for the company. And that's why I think he was so loved.
Yeah. Well, like any politician, you get a honeymoon, you get about 100 days, and then
Yeah.
people want to see what have you actually done. So, good luck to you, Bob.
Yeah.
We hope you aren't replaced by another Bob. No more Bobs.
Bob the third.
Can we just yes? Can we just at least whoever you find, whoever you recruit to take the baton in 2 years, just let it not be another Bob. And for our last piece of news in the queue, Gaylord Palms has opened How the Grinch Stole Christmas ice event with a chilly 90-degree exhibit that our reporter got to tour. And I also got to take a tour of this while it was under construction. And it is absolutely fascinating to see the hard work that goes into crafting tons and tons of blocks of solid ice into the Dr. Seuss characters that we all know and love.
Yeah, I was able to go to a construction tour once as well. And there's one thing for working around the clock and building all these things and being a craftsman. And then there's one thing of doing it in 9 degrees
Oh my gosh.
for a month or 2 months. Uh, and they just work nonstop. And they're fantastic. If you've never been to Gaylord Palms ice exhibits, you should go. They really, really are very well done. Please wear warm clothes because
Oh
the
my
one
god.
time I went for the construction tour, we were supposed to have a day where we visit a water park and a day where we visited ice, and I had the things
Oh no.
swapped around. So I got in the car with Matt, and he looked at me and he was like, "Are you good?" And I was like, "I'm excited to go." And then we showed up to Gaylord Palms, and I was wearing swimming trunks, and I realized what I
No.
did. I
No.
still had a great time. It was good, but we got out after that tour, and I was shaking, and I was like, it was beautiful.
Yeah, I
So
I will
please wear the
say,
right clothes.
okay, just so if you've never been through one of these experiences before, they bring craftsmen from Harbin, China, where they have an annual winter festival, and it is extremely cold all year round, but especially during the winter there.
Yes.
And generations upon generations of these crafts people have trained to be in sub-zero, freezing temperatures, carving these ice into magnificent sculptures, not just creatures, but also slides that you can literally slide down,
Hmm.
staircases, buildings. They they are used to this. If
Yes.
you are from Orlando, yes, they will give you a parka, a warm coat to wear. It is not enough. You need to wear long pants, preferably maybe like wear sweats or tights under your jeans.
Yep.
Wear the thickest socks that you have, and for gosh sake, wear gloves. Because like 2 seconds of taking your phone out to take a photo, and your fingers will freeze to your phone. And your
Yes.
phone's battery will also die.
Yes, it will. Very
Guaranteed.
fast.
Um,
And they usually sell the gloves too that have the touchscreen fingers built into them. So
it
if you don't have
helps.
it, yeah.
That helps, but honestly, those gloves are like to work are still too thin. Like you want like 3 layers of mittens to go
Yes, you
through
do.
this
It
thing.
depends on how much you want that Instagram selfie.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Honestly, like, if just based on how beautiful it is, I could spend an hour inside,
Mhm.
but based on how cold it is, I don't think I've ever lasted more than about 15 minutes. But that gives you time to walk through 10 scenes from the film, with everyone from from the Grinch and his dog Max to Cindy Lou and the many Who's. Um, and it always ends in a beautiful traditional ice display of manger and angels. Um, s-
And yeah, that
this
one's always stunning. The lights
this is
built in
the
and the glow, it's
and this is the first time that they've been able to do this. They had sort of substitute events because of COVID for the last couple of years, but this is the first time
mhm.
they've been able to bring the crafts people back from China since COVID-19 start. In addition to that, there's also there's a lot more to do in addition to the ice. So after you thaw out, there's an alpine village of little storefronts and shows and characters. There's a Cirque show. It's a 30-minute show in the atrium. They do a nativity show with international performers. There's a light show, kids activities. There's even a naughty or nice escape room. There's like you could easily spend a weekend at Gaylord Palms
Oh, yeah.
just doing all of these activities, and they will help you out with a package
Yes.
that includes hotel room and a lot of these activities. They're all priced individually, but there are bundles available. This is a really great alternative to you're sold out of Disney's Very Merry Christmas Party, or you don't feel like drinking your way around the world at Epcot. This is a great alternative kind of family attraction for the holidays.
And there really is a ton to do. When you visit,
Mhm.
I mean, there is nonstop things. And the great part is you're also in Florida. So if you want to warm up after going in the ice, you could just go outside to their water park as well because they have
Yeah,
a good sized water park for a resort hotel.
yeah, that feels very very European. Like you go in the freezing cold and then you jump in the sauna or the spa.
Yeah.
Go back and forth. It's good for your skin, right? And
And
honestly,
I believe
like if you've got kids that have been raised in Florida and they have never seen snow that wasn't made out of soap, this is a great opportunity because you can go, you can throw snowballs and you can tube down a hill, a snow hill, and those are things that you can't generally do in Central Florida anywhere else.
and I believe Matt was the one that went and covered the Cirque show this year. But
Yes,
whoever it was that we had that did, yeah, he said that it was the best Cirque show they had had in a long time
excellent.
at
Yeah,
this
they've
offering. Yeah, he
they've
said he
been
really
doing
enjoyed it.
they've been doing versions of that for several years, and some of them were pretty trippy. Some of them were
Yeah.
were, were kind of out there. Yeah, and a lot of that, some of the activities are ticketed, but a lot of them are just open to the public. All you've got to do is pay for parking and hang out.
Yeah.
So, well, that brings us to the end of the news in the queue. Before we get to this week's main attraction, I think it is time for us to hear a quick word from our sponsor.
The Attractions Podcast is brought to you by MEI and MouseFan Travel. Whether your next vacation is a magical trip to the theme parks, an exciting adventure to the pyramids of Egypt, or just a relaxing cruise on the turquoise waters of the Bahamas, MEI Travel provides premium service and expert advice to help you get the most of your vacation. They are always free of any hidden fees or costs to you. Visit them at mei-travel.com.
It's time for the main attraction.
And this week's main attraction, we finally have a confirmed closing date for one of the two Splash Mountain attractions. And we've also got some new information about a scene and characters for the upcoming Tiana's Bayou Adventure ride. In case you have been living in a swamp under a log, Splash Mountain is going away. The characters from the Song of the South are being removed. The mountain will still be there. The logs will still be there. The river will still be there. The big drop will still be there. But along the way, all of the theming is going to be changed over to the film The Princess and the Frog. And it will be opening it up in 2024, but your last chance to ride the Walt Disney version of Splash Mountain is going to happen next month, as of January 23rd, 2023. Splash Mountain in Disney World will be closed. So January 22nd is a Sunday. Looks like you're going to want to get your park pass reservation for that day if you want to be on the last log of Splash Mountain. We don't yet know a closing date for Disneyland. That will be announced at a later date. But I would expect, with all of these other new things opening up at Disneyland starting on in late January, that will be a perfect time for them to close that one down. Splash Mountain would typically close in late January for several weeks for an annual refurbishment. So it makes perfect sense for this to be the time for it to go down. I don't know. Are you going to get a chance to ride Splash Mountain one more time before it closes?
I might. I remember when the parks first reopened and they had already announced that this was closing. Everyone rushed to Splash Mountain because they're like, we got to be on the last one. And then here we are 2 years later, and we're like, oh, okay, now it's shutting down. I don't have to be on the last log. I do like the ride, but it has never been it's not my go-to every time I go to the park. So
it's the only time I really want to ride it is when it's a really hot day, and when it's a really hot day, the line's always too long, so I don't ride it. I know that there are people. There's a generation of people who this was like their e-ticket, and it is kind of in many ways like emblematic of the Eisner era. Like legendarily, it was one of the first brand new e-ticket attractions that he greenlit when Eisner came to power, basically because his son thought the model looked cool. But we got to be honest about the reason why it's going away is because it's based on a movie that has not been legally seen in the United States for well over a generation. And there are, I don't want to get into an argument over whether Song of the South should be seen or not. But it's, in terms of pop culture currency, it's not what people are looking for today. There's a new generation, there's new characters, there's new stories. And I think this is a perfect fit for Tiana and her friends. To be honest, if you watch the film Princess and the Frog, there's obviously a lot of influence of the early Disney style of the characters, and I can certainly see some of the animatronics from Splash Mountain very easily being recycled and fitting in, even in this
100%.
scene that we see right here. That turtle looks very similar to the turtles that we already see in Splash Mountain. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that Disney always recycles something. So I think that there's still be a lot of the look and the feel of Splash Mountain is still going to be there, even as they transform it into Princess and the Frog.
I definitely think that this is basically just going to be a current generation version of that ride. I do think that once it's all said and done, it's going to be very close to the same ride. I think that the big finale scene, that they could keep the steamboat in there. I mean, it's kind of almost too perfect, for the steamboat to be there. So I think it's one of those things, like you said, they're transitioning over from a different story. They're going to this new one. My number one complaint that I've had when it came to this ride is that they said it's going to be a continuation of the story, where I feel like there's so many people who've lined up, like, look at all these songs you can do in order, for the ride. So while I think it'd be great to have new music, I'm always for new original tracks, especially for the parks. It's great when they get their own identity like that. And we normally hate when they just copy and paste from the movies. This is one of those where I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish they and pasted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love book report attractions. I think we know that the original actors are going to be returning to voice the
Yep.
characters and sing. We don't know exactly what songs we're going to get to hear. Obviously, there's definitely songs from the film that would fit perfectly into this. In terms of the story details, you're right. They say it's going to take place in 1927, which makes it a sequel to the film. And the concept is that Tiana has helped start a company called Tiana's Foods, which is an employee-owned business, like a food cooperative. And they have re-energized an old salt mine in order to find a secret ingredient for Tiana's restaurant. And the main change that you're going to notice to the exterior of the attraction is this big water tower that's being added. Some early concept art showed a big tree and a boat being added to the top of the mountain, but the later model that we saw didn't have that. So who knows if that's going to happen? It's possible that we're seeing concept for Walt Disney World versus Disneyland. Like for instance, this artwork that they released shows side by side logs. And those are the logs that we have in Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, but in Disneyland, there's single file. So, question as to whether they'll replace the logs or whether they're going to have, slightly different designs for the two parks. Still a lot of unanswered questions.
It could be a lot like the Galaxy's Edge in both Florida and California, how it's the same land, but they had to modify here, modify there for the entrance. Yeah,
exactly. The Disney World version has a higher drop, which it still will, and is a slightly longer ride path. But the Disneyland version actually had more animatronics because it recycled its animatronics from the old America Sings. So it's got, I think it's like 100 over 120 or over 110 in California, and they're only like 80 something in Florida. That's counting total, not the ones that actually work. That number's a lot lower.
Yes, it is.
Well, if you want to ride these attractions before I'm not going to say go away, because honestly, the ride path's the same. As long as you close your eyes and put your fingers in your ears, it's going to be the exact same ride.
Yeah.
If you want to plan a trip out there, Walt Disney World and Disneyland's websites, or MEI and Mouse Fan Travel will get you there. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of another week. I want to, first of all, thank our sponsor, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel once again. I want to remind all of you to please give us a review on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating on Spotify. Tharin, I want to thank you for pitching in and joining us. Carly
Very happy to join.
Carly will be back next week. But where can folks keep up with you on the interwebs?
I've got it on my tag here, but it's just at Tharin White, TharinWhite, or of course, just follow Attractions on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that, because I basically just retweet and comment on anything that they do anyway.
Absolutely. We are here for you 24/7 at attractionsmagazine.com, on Twitter at Attractions Magazine, at Attractions Magazine on Instagram, at youtube.com/attractionsmagazine, and at Attractions on TikTok. You can find me personally at the UG series on Twitter or at theunofficialguides.com, where you can pick up a copy of my brand new book, Unofficial Guide to Universal Orlando 2023. And until next week, we hope that all of you folks stay safe, try something new, but most importantly, have fun. And we will see you again next time.
See ya.
Bye.